I auditioned for the first Thor film 10 years ago in 2009. And I just thought I was auditioning for a movie, you know, an interesting part, an interesting movie. Back then, the Marvel universe was only, they'd just made Iron Man. And I was thought, oh, I'll you know, have a go. Didn't expect to be cast at all. Basically, at the time, they were looking for sort of less well-established actors, so that the audience didn't have an association. They just wanted people to see these new characters, these new actors.
Yeah,
the remit was, if you're over 6 foot and you've got blonde hair, and you know, you can come and have a pop at it. So I actually auditioned. I never auditioned for Loki. I only ever auditioned for Thor, which is nuts.
And how long did the audition process? I mean,
it was about 3 months. So I can't believe I've got my own show. It's so exciting.
I think my worst experiences are usually quite solitary ones. The life of an actor, especially at the beginning, feels solitary, and you're going up for auditions and going up for different parts, and repeatedly are politely declined, sometimes impolitely declined, often. And the door will be closed in your face and you won't know why. And that moment is always a puzzling one, because the natural instinct is to take it personally. And often the decision isn't personal. But you feel as though, I certainly felt as though I had failed, and you can get very despondent. The challenge is to find a way of negotiating that sense of rejection, that sense of failure, without it eroding your sense of self and your own specific talent and your own curiosity in the work. I think it doesn't matter at what stage you're at in your creative life or in your career, but people will always have an idea of who they think you are, and often it's inaccurate or not wholly accurate, and you mustn't let them change your own sense of who you are. You have to plough your own furrow, because only you know, and only you know what you had to go through to deliver that performance in that audition, or on that stage, or in that short film or television series. And protect that with everything you have, because all those people who think they know who you are didn't do the work, and they don't know. So have that faith in yourself. I've been sort of acting for as long as I can remember. Me and my sisters and my cousins used to write plays in the summer holidays together, and build the costumes and the sets and write a sort of story, and they were completely outlandish and fantastical, and then we'd perform them for our parents at the end of the summer. And then it got serious, or at least I allowed myself to commit to acting as a profession, which I would do for the rest of my life, I hoped. When I was at Cambridge University, I was there reading classics, and I was in a production of Tennessee Williams' Streetcar Named Desire, and Lorraine Hamilton, who was a talent agent in London at the time, came to see it, and I was in my second term, aged 19 years old, and she came to see it. She wrote me a letter and said, I'd love to meet you in London. So I got on the train, and I remember going into her office, and she represented Emma Thompson and Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie, and I was like, wow, you've got a hell of a list here. And she was so sweet, and she said, Tom, I think you can do this if you want to, and I'd love to be your agent. And I was just amazed and incredulous, and it was really that moment, being in that production, that was when I gave myself permission to want to do it as much as I think I always had. I think I'd always dreamt of it, but I'd never given myself the permission until that point. And then I was off to the races, I was flying. There was nothing else I was going to do. There's an Italian film called The Sun's Room by an Italian director called Nanni Moretti, and it's about Nanni plays the lead in it as well, and he plays a psychotherapist who's so wise and still and compassionate and fun, and he has a family. He's got a wife and a son and a daughter, and early in the film the son is killed in a terrible accident, and it's really about how the family pulls together and kind of recovers from that. And I remember seeing it. I was like 19, and I found it so affecting, and it became sort of my favourite film of all time. And then as I got older, I kept going back to it just to check that it was as good as I remembered it being, and it really is. Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Indiana Jones trilogy. I just, when I saw those films as a child, that was another world for me. I was a boy. It's about a very masculine hero who is charismatic and intellectually curious and adventurer. And the films are so dear to my heart still. If they come on television, I can't help but watch the rest of it. The last thing I should say is, I would be lying if I didn't say this to you, is The Jungle Book. Wolfgang Reitherman's The Jungle Book for Walt Disney Studios, because it's perfect. I love that film. And when people come into my life and they haven't seen it, I have to sit down and watch it with them. And one day I can't wait to show my kids that film, because that's like one of the greats. I'm always quite wary of giving advice, because I think people generally like to find their own way. And all the advice I can think of is much better than any advice I could give. It's Shakespeare's "To thine own self be true." The more authentic and honest you are in your interaction with the world, both professionally and personally, the better you will be placed to do the kind of work which will touch others and move their hearts and minds. Because if you mean it, the chances are it's going to mean something to somebody else.
I don't know that I've ever been able to do anything. I say it as a sort of, because I'm aware that it can be a strength, but it can also be a weakness, because the focus is obsessive, and so when I go for something, I go for it at the expense of everything else. And I love what I do, simply, and I feel so lucky that I'm allowed to do it, and that I get to do it for a living. And cinema and theatre have had such a profound effect on me in my life. We all have two lives. Where are you? We all have two lives. The second begins when you realize you only have one. So I'm not wasting any time. And the thing is that, you know, with negativity is for my money, they are like clouds that pass across the sun, and they will pass, like they're just feelings, you know what I mean? And it's important not to dwell on them, and just move past it. There is so much, I find, and maybe it's my nature, but there's just so much about life that's a couple of basic things. Be on time. Never underestimate the importance of punctuality. Be prepared. You can never be over-prepared. And be true to yourself. And if you have something that you want to say, that you've been burning to say, don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't say it.